The Three Sisters, Part 2. Rarity didn't know how much time had passed when she woke up, but when she did, she couldn't feel anything at all. She tried to push herself up, but couldn't. She looked over her shoulder and gulped in horror. Several rocks had buried half her body behind her. She coughed, spitting some blood onto the hard stone floor under her.
Why am I still alive?
She groaned. She could feel her heart pumping fast as she began to hyperventilate. Slowly feeling was returning to her, and it felt like she was burning up to the rocks. Another groan made her look up. Cocoon stood over her sister's barely breathing body, barely holding several large rocks in place as their weight threatened to crush her. Slowly before Rarity's eyes, Cocoon's legs started to buckle. The princess was looking at Rarity in surprise and pity.
Yeah, it was Cocoon. I'm sorry, little filly. It seems this is it for us.
Cocoon smiled, and Rarity noticed a trickle of blood on the side of her mouth.
I protected Pupa from the falling rocks. My body is almost completely destroyed inside. I have little time to live.
Rarity coughed more blood.
Can we do something for Pupa?
Cocoon chuckled in surprise.
Oh, little pony, if you two had only met under better circumstances.
She closed her eyes as a thought crossed her mind. She looked at Rarity, who would undoubtedly die here as well. She looked up as the cave shook again.
We might not have enough time, but there is something we could do.
She looked down at Pupa.
I can use my gems to meld your life force to hers. You both would survive and not. What do you mean?
Rarity asked, her vision starting to fade.
You would both be turned into a new being, sharing both sets of memories.
Rarity... Sorry. She paused.
You would have to choose which world to go back to.
Rarity nodded sleepily.
It helps if you...
She drifted off to sleep.
I woke up sharing both my memories and those of Pupa.
Rarity said sadly.
I was inside her body, and she was there with me. There was no struggle. Slowly, we simply faded into each other, and that was all that was left. Was me.
She sighed.
I thought about what to do from Pupa's memories. I knew I would hate life in the hive, so I changed into a pony and climbed out. The top of the cavern had caved in and created a slope easy enough for me to do so. I used my magic to grab as many gems as I could, and I left.
Rarity looked down, away from the gazes of her friends.
I couldn't bring myself to look back. I knew Cocoon was dead, and I thought Chrysalis was as well. I just walked back to my home in Ponyville. I didn't talk to Mom or Dad. I just went straight to my room and finished the costumes. That night, my cutie mark appeared. I was elated. I thought it meant that throughout everything, my soul, Rarity's soul, had survived, and that we...
She stopped and corrected herself.
I really was myself. The rest, well, you already know the rest.
How did you survive? Don't changelings feed by stealing love?
Twilight asked.
I never needed to steal any.
Rarity said with a small smile.
My parents love me, and you girls do as well. I can feel it. And Sweetie, she can be a pain at times, but she loves me so much.
Her eyes teared up.
I couldn't live without her.
The group was quiet, each pony carefully considering the story that had just been revealed to them.
I believe her.
Applejack stated after a moment.
Don't ask me why, but I do.
Because she's Rarity, silly.
Pinky cheered.
I think I believe her as well.
Fluttershy trailed off and cringed.
It just... I mean, she knows about the cutie mark and the school play.
Rainbow Dash grinned.
Like some stupid changelings could have taken your place.
She paused.
No offense. I'm just saying that, nobody else could pull off your prissiness.
Her eyes went wide and she coughed.
So, fashionable. So fashionably prissy.
Rainbow sat down as everyone stared at her.
I'm just gonna shut up now. Don't worry about it, dear.
Rarity said before turning her attention to Twilight, smiling hopefully. Twilight slowly looked up at Princess Celestia, who took a long, considered scrutiny of Rarity.
I believe her as well, Princess.
Twilight finally said. Celestia smiled and nodded, her eyes still holding a certain amount of pity.
Rarity, you are free to leave, Princess.
Rarity chuckled a bit.
Thank you, Your Highness, but it's simply Rarity, and I believe I have a bride's dress to finish.
Princess Celestia nodded and headed out of the cell, followed by Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, and Fluttershy. But Rarity lingered, looking out sadly through one of the dungeon windows. She sighed and turned away.
Rarity?
Twilight looked at her friend.
Why do you think Cocoon did what she did?
Rarity shrugged with a pained look.
I don't know, Twilight. From Pupa's memories, Cocoon was always a tad aloof. She never went out of her way to spend time with Pupa. I still wonder, what was she thinking? She could have saved herself and left us both to die.
Twilight sighed and nuzzled her friend.
Maybe we'll never know.
Years ago, Cocoon grimaced and clamped her eyes shut.
Hold on, little pony.
She summoned all the energy and brought forth the empathy gems she had collected. She placed one on the unconscious filly, one on Pupa, and brought the last one in contact with her horn. Alone, the unicorn filly didn't have enough energy to save Pupa, but if Cocoon herself sacrificed all her life energy, she might have enough, just enough. Slowly, the gem, pressing against her horn, started absorbing the energy she was channeling. With a thought, it sent a tendril of magic to connect with the wand lying against the horn of the unicorn. The gem lit up, absorbing both the memories and essence of the now dead filly pitifully fast. Slowly, her memories slipped back to Pupa's hatching, while Chrysalis had been mostly uninterested in the new princess that had just emerged. Cocoon had been completely enthralled. Life at the Hive had been harsh, a changing kind of life where the slightest weakness was exploited, where being injured could spell your death by the hoof of your peers. And yet here was this soft, completely innocent and vulnerable creature, entrusting its life unknowingly to some of the coldest beings in the world. Scrolling down. Later on, she had realized that she had fallen in love with Pupa. She understood that her little sister meant more to her than anything, even queendom. But she also knew that her sisterly feelings for the newest princess would be perceived as weakness by Queen Metamorpha and Chrysalis. So she hidden her feelings, going just out of her way, so that she could subtly encourage her sister or even challenge her. She had been so proud that Pupa had not become as cold and merciless as the rest of the Hive, and even took some pride on it, wishing and hoping that some of her efforts had paid off. Pupa would never know. Quickly, she took it back, the young filly's memories, and the soul, and added them to her own energy, memories, and feelings. She then mixed it up with her own life force, restoring strength to the filly's soul. Just as her consciousness started to fade, she sent it all as a magical healing spell through the last gem. which formed a magical cocoon around her young sister.
Goodbye, pupa.
She whispered as her life left her. She willed her body to hold it on as long enough to push the regenerated body below her away, and then she finally let go. The rocks bearing her body shook the ground, waking up Pupa's Rarity. She looked around, bewildered, as her memories conflicted, the soul within her meeting and merging to one. Pupa Rarity shuddered as she looked at the remains of the original Rarity's body. The magic had drained it down to a desiccated husk. It was barely recognizable. Looking up the rock, she noticed that she could see a wide hole to the outside and that it was reachable. Slowly, as she made her way up, her body shone with a green light, and as it faded, black hooves and chitin armor were replaced with soft white fur. By the time she had reached the top, she was Rarity once more. Giving a last hesitant backwards glance to the collapsed cave she passed, she forced her eyes away and her mind to shift to other thoughts. She trotted away, pausing to pick up several gems for her school project. She did not want to think about what had happened. She didn't want to consider her loss. The quarry was silent for a little while. A paw burst through the rocks, followed by another, as a diamond dog pushed its way out of the rubble. It looked around before a flare of green dissolved the canine form into the shape of Princess Chrysalis. Looking at the rubble, she moved a bit out of the way until she could see the crushed remains of black chitin armor. She closed her eyes and grimaced.
I'm sorry, sister.
Her eyes opened and followed the collapsed cave to the exit.
I promise I will lead our hive to glory.
She quickly looked away.
Farewell, wherever you are.
With that, Princess Chrysalis opened her wings and flew home. Her dark thoughts brightened as she held the only empathy gem to be delivered that day. There was no one else now. No more silly competition. The hive was hers, all hers, and one day all of Equestria would know her glory. Author's note, 2/21/2013, edit Fixica, blah, blah, blah. And that was The Three Sisters.